Congressman French Hill is a Republican from Arkansas, member of the House Financial Services Committees. And Congressman, before we get to some of the Trump administration's trade issues that I know you've been focused on, I do want to get your reaction to that summit yesterday with President Putin.
Right. Well, I think the president really missed a golden opportunity to, in front of a global audience, outline all the challenges that we have with the Russian relationship. Their coddling of Assad in Syria, their illegal invasion of Ukraine and Crimea, their meddling in elections in Europe, and their meddling of elections here in the United States. So I viewed it was a real missed opportunity for him to make those concrete points in front of the president of Russia, and then, of course, talk about things we need to do together and focus on together, such as how do we reduce the threat of nuclear war and reduce nuclear stockpiles.
President Trump's mantra has been America first. Did you come away from that press conference yesterday thinking that he had put America first on that stage?
Well, again, I think there is no moral equivalence with the United States and Russia, zero. Russia is a kleptocracy. It is an authoritarian state disguised as a democracy. Putin is a classic KGB autocrat. And so to put America first is to go over and make the points that I suggested, which are that we want the Russians to help resolve the issue that they've created in Syria. We want them out of Ukraine, supporting a democracy in the Ukraine. We want them to back off their Crimea efforts, and we want them to stop meddling in the elections like we've seen them do in Ukraine, Montenegro, and as our security apparatus in this country has said on a bipartisan basis, that they attempted during the 2016 elections here.
What's your level of confidence in the U.S. intelligence community right now?
It's high. I think our intelligence community has a group of outstanding, longtime public servants to the American people, and they work very hard on behalf of our country. I believe that American citizens, and you've seen that from some of your calls today, are severely disappointed in what they've seen during the 2016 investigative work at the FBI, for example. And so I think we have to get to the bottom of that and clear out any stain on the FBI's outstanding reputation.
Before we leave that press conference, President Trump prides himself on being a deal maker, a tough negotiator. Do you think he was tougher behind closed doors for that 2 hours with President Putin than he was in front of the cameras at that press conference?
Well, he certainly does pride himself in his negotiating capability, and he may well have been. We weren't there to know. But I hope that he raised all the issues that I touched on. And let me say that actions speak louder than words. We have, working with the executive branch in the Congress, increased our defense spending, increased our commitment to NATO, encouraged NATO nations to increase their commitments, increased intelligence budgets, and we have the toughest sanctions on any country outside Iran or North Korea that we have on Russia because of their meddling in Ukraine and their illegal taking in Crimea and their coddling of Assad. So I think the American government, acting both in the executive branch and legislative branch, have been quite tough on Russia, and I'm sure the president made that clear in his private meeting.
As we noted earlier, trade is an issue you've been very much focused on. I want to get your sense of how President Trump dealt with that issue in his swing through Europe before this summit.
Well, we had the NATO meeting last week, and the principal issue there was to help reinforce something that NATO's made a commitment to, which is 2% of GDP for NATO nations as a percentage of military spending, and about 20% on new weapons systems. I thought the president did a good job pressing NATO nations for that. I think he was left NATO stronger than when he entered the meeting. We've gone from 3 countries that do that to 8, and we're going to accelerate the time frame, including the commitment from Germany, which is very important. So I think NATO meeting was left in the right way. He also talked about the EU and our trading relationships there, and there's a lot of work to be done there. We need the EU as a partner with the United States, and we need them in our trade disputes and trade pressure on China. So it's a very delicate balance to criticize the EU on how they can improve their market access for American goods and services, and yet also have them as a partner in a much bigger trade issue in China.
So is President Trump striking the right balance right now in your mind?
Not in my mind. I think that we should, if I look at trade, I look at NAFTA, number one. It's our biggest trading relationship between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. He wants to modernize NAFTA. He's doing a hard work of that, and I hope it brings to fruition soon, because in Arkansas, it's our largest trading partners are Mexico and Canada for both agricultural products and non-agricultural goods and services. So that's number one. Number two, we want to get at the heart of the problem in trade in this country, and that's China, and we need the EU's support there. So I would not have done steel and aluminum tariffs across the board.
We're talking with Congressman French Hill, Republican of Arkansas, this morning. Invite viewers to join in the discussion. Democrats, it's 202-748-8000. Republicans, 202-748-8001. Independents, 202-748-8002. He'll be with us for about the next 20 minutes or so this morning, so you can go ahead and start calling in now. Talking trade, do you see trade as a national security issue here? President Trump has imposed these across-the-board steel and aluminum tariffs under Section 232 of the 1962 Trade Act, and that allows him to do it for national security reasons. Is that plausible?
Well, I think using Section 232 selectively is plausible, but he did it across the board, basically all product categories and all countries, with an eye that our steel industry and our aluminum industry are national security important. They are. Obviously, we need steel and aluminum for a national security industry, but we also have supplies from our allies like Canada. And I would say that doing it across the board is creating more problems than it's solving. I would have selectively use steel and aluminum tariffs, and I'll have to say that the principal dumper of steel and aluminum is China. It's not the EU.
So if you're concerned about the balance not being correct right now, what can Congress do? What are you and your colleagues doing to either influence the president or pass legislation that might change the direction here?
Well, certainly we've been meeting with administration officials at the Commerce Department, USTR, and the White House to say that we need to work together on this. You know, when we collaborated, we were able to get tax reform and tax cuts passed. When we collaborated, we were able to roll back and right-size regulatory burden. When it came to China's predatory investing in the U.S., we've collaborated with the House, Senate, and the administration on CFIUS reform, which is the Committee for Investment in the United States. We need to collaborate on the trade strategy, and trade is an enumerated power in the Constitution for Article 1. So I believe that we need to step back and collaborate on how best to improve our trade strategy with China.
So should the White House get approval from Congress before imposing any tariffs?
No, I don't think they have to do that. But we essentially allow the executive branch to have that trade negotiation capacity under law in Congress. And so Congress has an important oversight role, and Congress should be consulted on that strategy. Some in Congress want those tariffs to be approved before they take effect. I'm not sure that's absolutely necessary, but that consultation process and designing that trade approach, I think, is essential that it be done with Congress and not in the executive branch alone.